This is a great discussion. I mean, again, like there is so much in here that hopefully it's useful for everybody out there. If you're looking for a role, you kind of got a bit of an insight now to what's going on. Karl's, I think, done a great job articulating obviously what his firm does. Hey everybody, welcome back. Brian Hoagley here with CISO Life. Very excited today to have with us from BeecherMadden, Karl Sharman. Karl, welcome. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You and I have been exchanging comments and everything on LinkedIn. I really like your content and your insight. You work for BeecherMadden, a recruiting firm, and obviously we share interest in cybersecurity. It's a focus of yours and what you guys are doing. Just give us, what are you guys into? What's your target? What's your role in the cybersecurity community?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I think the good place to start is I lead North America for our operations. So we focus globally on cybersecurity. We have offices in Singapore, coming back to that, Zurich, Serbia, London, and the UK. Our office is in Northern Virginia, just outside Washington, DC.
Mm-hmm.
We mainly focus on cybersecurity. That also takes us into certain other areas such as fraud, IT audit, operational and technology risk. But majority of our work is cybersecurity, and we've been in this for 10 years now. So we're pretty well established, and because of that allows us to have incredible amounts of data for organizations to use, including salary data, where talent pools sit. So we're able to tell a company where best to hire for that talent. Which is very critical in when there's a common myth of a skills gap, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also it's allowed us to then move into more of an education space. So we do this a lot of it very complimentary for candidates and clients, not just on the salary side, but also in terms of how to get positions. We, as you previously mentioned, we have a podcast. We're trying to do white papers. We're going into universities and colleges to speak and try and educate people on what career paths look like. And that's really important to us because we're only as good as the talent that exists in the market.
Right.
And I think it's really important for us agencies to remember that, and also the companies that are hiring. Our clients expect a certain service with us, and that's an important part. So education is a huge part of what we do.
You want to be part of something, you want to feel good about it. So, and it's great that you guys are giving back in that sense and able to educate, hey, here's some things to make you better, right? Like you're helping them help you.
Yeah, and our organization's aim is to become the favorite cybersecurity recruitment company, not the best or the leading, because that means it becomes transactional. The favorite is that emotion, and it's really important. Like I believe my team and the teams around us are storytellers. We have to tell a story about a candidate to a client and make sure that we give them the best opportunity to get that position. And we use something to judge that on is a Net Promoter Score, which it allows feedback from candidates and clients, and that gives each consultant a score of how are they doing. What's the people saying about them? How are they rating them? And that encourages us to really work with candidates and clients closely, not
Right.
just because of their data piece and because clients need this or candidates need this. It's actually that people perspective. And as you know, majority of problems in cybersecurity are people led. And recruitment is one of them that causes a real problem. There's some clients that we've brought on board in the last 6 months that previously were taking 4 or 5 months to get, to find the right talent in cybersecurity, which is an incredible risk.
I've seen that.
When you're a CISO,
Right.
it's, the CISO can't be expected to do everything as a one-man band. They need them people around them. They need that expertise, especially if you're going to specialize in certain areas, whether it's SIEM, instant response, different areas like that. You need that talent and that technical talent around you to aid you and make sure you're mitigating that risk. And that's why for us, everything starts with with people and finishes with people when it comes to cybersecurity. And as I said, recruitment is a huge aspect of that.
A lot of relationship building that you're doing and working with, right, on the hiring side, you get to know them. It's not like you're just kind of like handing people off, right? You actually have an invested relationship with the hiring manager. So what can you kind of like like pull the curtain back a little bit and tell people, hey, this is what's going on, this is why it takes X amount of time, or this is what you don't see that's leading up to you getting hired or not?
Yeah, well, I think it's like anything, really, isn't it? It's like any type of leadership. It's very easy to break trust. Like you can break it very easily, and it takes ages to build it. And it's exactly the same with candidates and clients alike. Like I can spend hours upon hours, months even building these relationships, and then I forget to get back to people and stuff like that. And that really does happen in this market. I put up some job adverts, being totally open, and I've had over 100 applicants per job right now because of the situation where people are out of work.
Right.
So it's very hard to try and get back to people. Now, I'm an agency. Imagine being a Goldman Sachs, a Morgan Stanley, a JP Morgan. You're going to get hundreds upon hundreds of applicants. So for candidates, it's about realizing that you are in, a market right now, especially where there is a number of candidates suddenly available in cyber. We didn't have that 3 or 4 months ago. There was candidates available, and you could certainly get candidates, but they were normally moving from jobs. Suddenly you've got a lot of people that have been let go because, companies are, unfortunately going out of business or can't or not taking cyber that seriously and have cut that because it's a cost center for them. And I do believe that that's something that candidates need to be aware of. Now, when I entered this market 3 years ago from the UK is a very mature market when it comes to using agency and external recruitment means. In the US, it's still pretty new. There's a number of people that have done what I've done, moved here from the UK to try and improve that. And that is certainly part of our education and ambition within that. And that's where education has been so critical in terms of candidates actually communicating up front. This is what the process looks like. The tier 1 banks were probably one of the first people to do this, where they were like, this could take 6 weeks to get through a process. And everyone was like, whoa, I don't want to do that. I need a job now. Like, I'm looking now. But they were actually doing candidates a favor. Like they were pre-warning that, especially in cybersecurity, if you're a CISO at a tier 1 bank and you're trying to hire a director, as much as it's your priority, the regulators, the compliance people, the auditors, they're going to be on your back about every other issue that you're going to have. And that's a huge part of it. Like, you've been a CISO, you know how busy you get. You have the best intention to get back to people. You have the best intention like we do, but there's always another priority. There's always more that can be done. And that's why I've commonly spoke about burnout in cybersecurity, because there's just so much, there's always more that can be done. And for a candidate, they have to remember that. I get candidates all the time following up with me. I think that's great. I think if you've got a contact there, either with the agency or the internal firm, just following up, just keep reminding them that you're there is a key part of that, because people do get swamped with stuff and they do lose track of time. And I don't know about you, but March went very, very quickly, and now March went really slowly. Now April's gone really quickly. So I feel like like things are moving very, very quickly. And I won't be the only one, so if hiring managers have lost that track of time because the coronavirus and they're having to deal with this risk or a potential breach, suddenly that gets put further down the pile. A question for candidates to ask, and it's something we ask all our clients, is this a signed off role? Do you have a signed budget for this position? Often companies will be quite speculative and put out potential roles without sign off, and then they'd get a good candidate to a final interview and then go, right, I'm just going to have to get sign off, and then you wait 2 weeks to go and get the CFO to sign off on it.
What are the things that maybe kind of on that flip side, you're like, you wish candidates would just kind of like pump the brakes on and be like, look, that's not helping you. You could maybe just kind of not do it. Just some tips on that side, because I'm sure we could all use that kind of feedback.
Yeah, the only thing I say is applying for multiple jobs at the same company. Like if you companies are looking for people that want to work for that company. So I think you have to find the balance. Like, if you're sure that that cybersecurity analyst is the right position for you, but then you apply for an incident response analyst, an application, security consultant, an identity access management consultant, you start applying for all different jobs that maybe don't fit your skill set. Sometimes it looks desperate. And that would be the perception of recruiters, because when you apply for jobs, even internally, you're meeting a recruiter. That recruiter might not be a specialist in cybersecurity,
right?
Which is quite often the case internally, unless you've got a real large cybersecurity team, such as your tier one banks that will have cybersecurity specialist recruiters that have been trained in that area and are used to recruiting in that area.
Right.
But if you don't, if you're applying for 6-7 jobs, there's a chance that that recruiter is just going to be like, that's just spam. Let's not acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And that can really, cull your chances in terms of doing it. The other thing that can really not help your reputation is if you've applied for the same company within a 3-month spell. Is quite often if they've already interviewed you, let's say 2 months down the line, and you then keep applying after, it's not normally the right move to make.
Gotcha.
Mainly because they will be aware of you. The first thing they do is check their systems. Who have they previously interviewed? I've just got a client right now here in Washington, D.C. that interviewed one of my candidates 6 months ago and has now put them in a new process because they better fit another job. Now, you can't always, be assured of that's going to be a possibility.
Right.
But instead of just keep applying every time they release a job, the best part would be ring the person that you interviewed with last time, ring the HR person, rather than just spamming in terms of applying.
Right.
And obviously, like anything, I'm sure that the more times you apply, the better chance you've got to get in a position. But it's them personal relationships and them networks that will get you them positions better than just spamming in terms of applying for jobs.
I think that's really great to hear from your side. Like, work the network, but don't over spam. You gotta kind of develop the personal relationship. You just can't just kind of fling resumes into the machine and expect results, right?
Yeah, I mean, networking. When we did our salary report for 2020, networking out the people that we interviewed, 33% I think it was got their job last year through networking alone, through a network of their own. So which is pretty high, and can obviously save organizations a lot of money as well, from that perspective. We spoke to a tier one bank yesterday going over some of their salary benchmarking, and they said that they had 200 applications through their internal networks for one position, as an example within cybersecurity. So it shows the level that you can do. I mean, every position that I've got in my career has all come through networking. I've never applied for a position. It's always been a referral or recommendation. Other than one when I used an external agency myself. But yeah, so I'm a big believer in that. Like, I'm constantly trying to network, constantly trying to educate, constantly wanting to improve other people.
Right.
And that's the start of, building network and building long-term relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's probably a little interesting for people to do, because you can't get out. You can't, glad hand. You can't, share a drink with people. We'll get back to that point, right, everyone? Like, we're going to overcome this. We'll get on the other side of that curve. I think in the meantime, there's opportunities. There's plenty of conferences going on. Again, there's so much. Everyone's eyeballs are on screens right now, whether they want it or not. That you've got their attention if you are creative in knowing how to reach out. You mentioned your salary report. Is that something that's available for review, or how does kind of access or visibility into that look? Because that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so we've spent, like I said, the last 10 years doing this now. So we have one for most markets now, that we tend to give out to our clients, and then once we've done that, we then select handfuls of people where we can aid them in their benchmarking for hiring. From there, we will then start to do more in terms of going out to candidates and educating them. I tend to spend most of my time educating candidates on where they should value their sort of salary levels.
Okay.
Because obviously in cybersecurity, you get some people that undervalue themselves, and majority
Right.
of people can overvalue themselves
Sure.
and actually talk themselves out of positions. And I think that's a common mistake that happens within that, as well as organizations not paying enough as well for specific positions.
Right.
So it's a lot of education. We don't make it publicly available, but if people want to, approach us and ask for a copy, that's absolutely fine.
Oh, that's good.
We tend to talk through a lot of videos, especially now. Normally I'm flying all over the place trying to meet people and talk them through it. But obviously with the current situation,
Sure.
we're relying a lot more on video to talk them through it and understand their needs and how it fits them. And I've done that with a number of CISOs in terms of when they're looking for their next opportunity, right the way down to going to universities and colleges and showing them these are the sort of levels that you could earn if you go on this type of pathway or you do this type of thing.
So let's talk about maybe one of those pathways, right? So if we hone in on kind of like college educated, computer science degree, 4-year bachelor's degree in either network administration, some type of, relevant, right, bachelor's, they've done an internship, they're looking for their first role, probably shooting for some type of either junior analyst because they know how to carve PCAP and kind of like look at, bits on the wire. Maybe they've got, some systems administration capabilities and they can do some type of security engineering, or, they've kind of these policy wonks, right, who can just kind of like eyeball policy and kind of like know and understand governance. Kind of those are 3 separate tracks. I don't know if you want to pick one, but like what's, coming out of university, like what's somebody kind of shooting for, realistic expectations for kind of that first job salary, and maybe what should they be thinking about for one of those tracks?
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously the $1 million question right now.
Sure.
There's some great college university schemes across the globe now within cybersecurity, and it's great to see more specialist areas, like digital forensics and more instant response areas coming out, more security engineering and architecture areas coming out within these, education degrees. I think our fear right now, and something that we've been talking to the InfoSec Institute and Cybery and a few other educators, is there enough in terms of actually seeing this as a entry-level role? Is it that people in cybersecurity need to initially go through IT and then step over, or initially go into the consulting world and then step in? Because as you see, poor job descriptions quite commonly, and another thing that we do with our clients is job description reviews to understand where their skills gap actually is and where they should be looking in their teams, rather than just putting out, I need a security analyst for $70,000 with 8 years experience, which is just, not possible.
That's not happening. Sorry. So
that's okay. But like it's true. Like poor job descriptions are what causes a lot of the skills gap.
Yeah.
And ultimately, these could be filled by very, very capable, skilled young people who just need that opportunity. So that's the first thing that we've been trying to work out with some of these institutes and some of these educators is this actually an entry-level industry? Because not every industry is. And there is a real lack of cybersecurity jobs outside the consultancies, because the consultancies do it very well. The Big Four are a great example of taking people, straight out of that and putting them into, real jobs that give you high level exposure. The first thing that I would always recommend is looking at internships, gaining as much commercial experience as you can. Facebook, Walmart, Aon, a number of these large organizations are doing fantastic work. I've seen a lot in terms of their internships, and that can be a great stepping stone into a full-time position. And they want young people to bring new ideas and fresh ways of thinking, especially from a well-educated background. The second thing is that as much as it might not be an entry-level position, we do need that. And that is the thing that I keep pushing on to clients, is like, if you can't get budget for your positions, hire younger, hire less experienced.
Right.
Like, because these people, especially coming straight out of college or university with the amount of debt that they could have, they just want the chance.
Yeah.
They just want that opportunity.
Right.
So I think when you're coming out of that, you've got to be open to a $50,000 salary, a $40,000 salary up, towards 70 to 80,000, don't
Sure.
be coming out and expecting, to make the six figures. That is certainly possible within a 2-year period, but you
Sure.
need that commercial experience to get that. And I come from the soccer, soccer background before this, in recruitment, recruiting soccer players in the UK. The one thing that we always used to say was we'd never sign a player in a first team if he never had senior experience. Well, there's always this funny quote about you never win anything with kids, which is what Sir Alex Ferguson then went and counteracted that and won the championships with a number of kids.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the problem that we're having in cybersecurity. There's this old mantra of no, we need experience because that's the only way we're going to mitigate risk.
No, it's...
Well, yeah, we need to take chances on these people. We need to give them the opportunity, and that's where we're trying to work with our clients in terms of not just thinking about diversity, and we're constantly, when we're presenting candidates, we're trying to present self-educated people. We're trying to present people that have that are women or more diverse backgrounds, but also we're trying to push on them and saying like, well, let's see if we can create an internship here, or let's see if we can take in a junior person and get a mid-level person so they can learn off them. And that dual mentoring can then improve that. And then you won't need to use us in 18 months' time, because you'll have that person. If that person leaves in 2 years' time, that next person can then make the step up. And that can also be very, very good for a sort of reputational standpoint for a company, but also, more importantly, when you're thinking about talent pooling, and we're looking at like a talent factory approach, sometimes that can be a lot beneficial for the long-term future of an organization, especially when you're looking for stability in cybersecurity.
Yeah, you got to grow a base. You can't keep buying kind of that mid or top talent and expect that they're going to just do everything, or they've even got everything that you need. Like, I've been a huge fan. My last firm, I really pushed on, our SOC was made up of, entry-level folks, right? I had two great women on that team. One came out of military, one came out of college. This was essentially both of their first jobs, and they crushed it on the in the SOC. And then we just kept kind of filling it with younger and younger talent, because I was I came from, doing that myself. So I see the value in it. Plus, I wanted to build the team that I wanted. I didn't want to hire somebody else's team and make them work in my, I wanted to shape and mold the organization that I wanted to have to be effective. And by having good leadership, and it wasn't just my leadership, I had an amazing director and AVP of kind of that whole component. Mike Packard, he's been on here before. He, was able to shape and mold that space as well. And it's like, let's bring in the younger talent. They're cheaper, yes, but they also they're closer to the most recent knowledge and education than your mid-tier, your really senior level folks. So it is interesting that everyone kind of like wants, this is probably when I should draw, everybody kind of, wants like this for talent. And it's like, you're doing it wrong. The pyramid is inverted. Like, you need to build, your talent pool of younger folks down here. Yeah. And you can get away with having less strategic senior level people to then manage this bigger group down here. And you're right. The old mentality is like, oh, we just need this big fat middle of like, we need this group. And then who's down here to do, it doesn't play out. And you're right. Like, with the market the way it is, especially today, what we saw even before this whole thing started with just the lack of talent in the pipeline, right? You had all these jobs that were open and no one's applying for them. And yet people are still kind of going for that middle tier. It's like, yeah, there's a whole workforce ready to go do something. You just have to give them a chance. You have to go look. I think the other piece is hiring managers probably, maybe I'll go out on a limb and say this, correct me if I'm wrong, please, is like, they're scared to hire incorrectly. They're scared to hire younger, more inexperienced people and actually nurture them and lead them, maybe because they're incapable of doing it. They don't know how to grow people. They just know how to kind of just manage. And they just want to hire somebody who can just go do and fix that problem, and then they don't have to deal with it. It's like, well, you're not going to build a great team if you just have all these individuals off doing great things and you're off managing their performance reports. Like, you need to be a leader. You need to cultivate a team, right? I don't know. Are you seeing kind of like on the hiring manager side, like you wish kind of more folks, were just like kind of be leaders. Don't just hire and throw into the organization.
There's two things on that. So talent depth. So we use black box thinking in terms of our strategy. With everything, we're very data led. We're trying to constantly think, outside that box in terms of how can we bring new initiatives to our clients. But
Right.
not enough clients really understand workforce management and talent strategy from a cybersecurity perspective. Everyone has them people at a very central organization. For me, I've been saying for a long while, we need a chief of staff. Every security department needs some sort of chief of staff or some sort of specific HR function in order to improve talent depth. So that's the first thing on that. We need to, there isn't so much of a skills gap as such. You're exactly right. A number of these students now, because of how hands-on, and I've seen these degrees firsthand, they are getting to use, languages, they're getting to use tools, so they can use this. But because you want someone with 4 years commercial experience with them tools, doesn't necessarily mean they can't do the job. That's the barrier that you're putting in place. It's not done by regulators. It's not done by auditors. It's often done by HR, or it's done by salary bandings that have gone, well, this is a senior position, so we're going to put this salary banding on. That's where it's going to be fixed. Cybersecurity doesn't follow all salary bandings. Cybersecurity doesn't always follow in terms of where positions should sit. And that's where sometimes from an organizational design standpoint, you need to start considering, okay, how does this need to look to operate better? So we're starting to see more matrix and flat models where there's different reporting lines, where there's no middle management. We're starting to see a lot of different initiatives to try and align this and get more hands-on folks. And if you want hands-on, you're exactly right. Go for junior people or people that want to learn and want to, get their next opportunity. And that's not ruling out, anyone else. But you're right, they are hungry, they're going to work harder, they have all the right, attributes in that respect. And I've been pushing on my candidates, scrap resumes to a degree. Obviously it's good to have the evidence, but scrap it in a way and go, right, we're gonna do behavioral assessments. We're gonna do, personality assessments. How do you fit into our culture? Right. What are you gonna bring to do here? Because we're going to a position in cybersecurity over the next couple of years where candidates are going to have to interview the client because there's not going to be enough candidates.
Right.
Like, that's as simple as it is. I speak to candidates who have got 7-8 opportunities.
Right.
No one's interviewing them. The tables are starting to turn. So we have to be very aware of that. And the clients have to as well. And they have to change their approach to this to get that talent. And trust me, I've filled positions in 2 to 3 weeks, maybe less time sometimes, because I've been able to find that talent. But when you can't, you've got to change your ways. You can't just be stubborn and stick at it. And that comes back to your point of hiring managers, is that a number are very like, I want this type of team. I want this type of team, I want 30 people and only 30 are the most experienced A players. And that's fine. You can do that. But your CFO is not going to be too happy about that when you're paying $300,000 per candidate.
Yeah, he's going to laugh you out of the room. Yeah,
exactly.
He's going to punch you right out.
So you need to find that balance and go, from a risk standpoint, where do my people sit? What skills do I need, and where can I mitigate the risk? But secondly, I'm being judged not only on mitigating the risk, but how long this talent stays here for, and how much it costs. And when I'm searching for winners in terms of leaders, I'm searching for, okay, what teams have you managed? In what different domains have you managed, like different from fraud to threat intelligence to instant responders? So you get an idea of different personalities. I'm looking at, have you managed different cultures? So different types of, personality, different types of background, different types of languages. But I'm also looking at, okay, what's been your retention rate? Have people just left you a lot? And a number of organizations are really struggling with this right now because people are just leaving, going in, coming straight back out, going in, coming straight back out. It's like a revolving door, and no one wants to work for them companies unless they're desperate. And that's going to take serious investment to sort that out. That's going to take a CFO going in there and going, we're going to have to spend another $1 million on this because we haven't got this right from a culture standpoint or a leadership standpoint. And that's where I think leaders should be judged in cybersecurity on the retention of staff, because it can save organizations a considerable amount of money, even maybe more than breaches. If you don't have a breach in a few years, that can be your real cost center. And cybersecurity, unfortunately, is a cost center. We're not a sales function,
Yep.
unless you are working in a vendor or a consultancy, or unless you've come up with a way of building your own product internally and being able to outsource that or sell it on,
Right.
as certain organizations have done. But very much it is a cost center, and leaders need to be able to, make sure that they are being able to quantify why they are there. And retention rates can be a key indicator of good leadership.
What's the thing that you think is holding a lot of people back from getting that role whenever they're applying for it?
Yeah, well, the great thing is that we're all individuals, right? So we all have a different opinion of what good looks like, and
Right.
I think that's part of the issue when it comes to senior leadership. Whether you're a CEO, CIO, CFO, any of these C-suite positions, the first thing you want to understand from a CISO is, are they taking security seriously? That's the first thing you want to understand. You've spoke about it before, about the, you've had previous experiences of where they're not taking security as seriously. And I talk to CISOs about that all the time when I'm trying to help them through these processes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing. And a good indicator of that for me is reporting lines. Like if you're reporting into the CIO with a dotted line to the board, that's probably okay. If you're reporting to the CEO, even better. Like you're going to get more exposure for your career. But secondly, you can manage the risk better. And you're going to have good oversight of the entire risk across the organization. And that can be a really good indicator in terms of what they want in terms of reporting lines. Because if you're reporting into the CFO, you're going to have to focus primarily on, this is where I've managed budgets before. This is the type of team I built. This is how I can do it. It's a very different approach. And sometimes reporting lines can tell you what you need to be. The CEO only really cares about your shareholders, 9 times out of 10.
Sure.
So you're going to have that, that ability of, focusing on what the CEO wants. If you're going into a CIO, you're going to have to focus on the more technology standpoint and the information that they're having to oversight, or whatever the business is.
Right.
And they can be things to try and consider. The other thing is, speak to people in the firm, speak to people in the organization that you might know or can get introduced to, and find out what are they currently working on, what are they looking to work on, and what's the the type of thing that they were asked, or the type of culture that they were seeing since they've been working there. And all that information can be great. I have a number of CISOs that now do that from speaking to me. I introduce them to certain people in the organization that I know, and I'm like, look, just have a 10-minute talk with this person. And we try not to say, like, they're interviewing for this position. We try and keep it confidential.
Sure.
But we just try and set up them conversations. And likewise, with someone who's left the business can be really helpful. Like you said, on the flip side, someone who's left that business that you're interviewing with can give you the real truths about what they're seeing, i.e., middle management isn't good enough. We've got too many contractors in the building. And you can go and deal with them in the interview process and say, from my research. And that can just show your initiative, that you've gone out there, done the work. Because there's a number of CISOs, as it's a competitive market. It's one of the most competitive market currently in the job market entirely. There's not that many roles. Not many companies treat it seriously. And the very top end, the very 1%, of your serious money of, above 750,000 are very few and far between. And it's the same collective that will cycle round them jobs unless people can break their way in. So you've got to make sure that you do your research and you prepare and you do as much as you can. And that means coming out the box, spending a lot of time speaking to people in the company, outside the company, speaking to recruiters, like myself, like who know a lot of people and know a lot about different organizations. Like I can give you that information, like, okay, it's my time, but I'm always willing to help people, as I've said before, like you are, like, and that can be the part that stands out, because you can't get inside that person's head. You can't get in that CIO unless you know them. You can't get in that CIO's head. People's opinion changes every day. If I'm looking for a security analyst today, I might read a different article and that goes, no, maybe I don't need to focus so much on QRadar. Maybe I'm focusing on the wrong tool.
Right.
And a day later I go, we're scrapping that. I'm going for a different tool, let's say, as an example. And that happens. We have clients all the time that go, 1 week into a search and go, yeah, we refined the search. We've refined the search. We've changed our mind. And I'm
Right.
like, I've just spent the last 2-3 days speaking to candidates for you, and now
Right.
none of them fit. You
Ah.
know, and that's part of our job, obviously. You know,
Sure.
being agile, and that's why we've been in the market, because we have these talent pools ready to go. But it still hurts every time,
Yeah.
because you know you've wasted days, and that's exactly the
Yeah.
same for them candidates. Them
Right.
candidates have got brought in. They love the organisation.
Yeah.
You know, say it's like Facebook or Google, and they're like, this is my chance to get in there, and then suddenly their heart's
Boom.
ripped out because you've then changed your strategy, and
Yeah.
that happens constantly. So the only thing I can really counteract that with is, like I said, you know, manage that expectation, but secondly, do as much research as you can and speak to as many people as you can, because the more information you have going into that interview process, for me, the greater the chance that you have. And when it
Oh,
comes
yeah.
to references, like, references is something that not every company does. So, you know,
Right.
I love what you're saying. I think it's brilliant, and I would do that if I was hiring people. Because you're exactly right. I get so many references through when I'm hiring for my team, and I get their, you know, 2 former bosses ago, their friends, their
Yep.
mum, you know, whoever they can get hold of that will give them a good reference.
Sure.
We all do it. We all
Yeah.
do it. Like, I'm not going to give you someone who's going to say something bad about me. But if you go and interview some of the former members of my team that I let go,
Right.
they're probably not going to say as many good things. And you will, if you screen enough of them, they will give you the themes that you will see. It's not a no, you know, unless it's like a racist or a behavioral issue that you're
Right.
constantly seeing. But if you're seeing themes of, he's only good when his back's against the wall, or he's only good when, you know, he only spoke to me when things were going well, you know, you start to see a leadership style and a leadership trait that might not be good in such a high pressure environment, or, you know, and stuff like that. And that can be really critical to companies in terms of mitigating these risks, because, you know, with CISOs, with a cybersecurity analyst, you can replace them. You make a mistake hire, you know, stuff like that. The further you go up the food chain,
Harder
not
it
so
is.
much.
Right. This is a great discussion. I mean, again, like, there is so much in here that hopefully it's useful for everybody out there. If you're looking for a role, you kind of got a bit of an insight now to what's going on. Karl's, I think, done a great job articulating, obviously, what his firm does. And this is Brian Hoagley. Thanks again for watching CISO Life. We'll catch you guys next time. Stay safe out there, all right? Take care.